All right, so this is a bit of an interesting dilemma. I call it, are you in or are you out? And this deals with estate planning, and it's a pretty common situation that comes up between spouses. And the real issue is whether you are in the will or out of the will and how much, right? So there's a law that you can disinherit anybody you want, or you can give your estate to anybody you want. However, you cannot disinherit your spouse because that's just bedrock justice and equity and fairness. You cannot disinherit your spouse, but you can give your spouse certain limitations, right? So a lot of times families will create an estate plan and they don't think about this sort of minimum requirement. And then there's a statute in the probate court that they run up against, and a spouse has to decide, can I elect against the will, or do I just take whatever was given to me? And the main issue here is what is really in somebody's estate when they pass away. Because the probate code, the statute, applies only to assets in the decedent's individual name, right? So we always kill the husband first, right? So me and Gina are married. I die first. The only thing that's included in my estate are assets that I personally own by myself in my own name. And as you might imagine, as you think through that for a second, there's a lot of things that are not included in that. IRAs, life insurance, real estate that you might own with another party, joint tenants with right of survivorship, bank accounts that are joint tenants, right of survivorship. You might have a piece of real estate or a checking account or other brokerage account that has a designation called transfer on death. A transfer on death deed is a very common estate planning tool, and it's used to move things out of the probate code. So you could very easily have an entire estate between a husband and a wife that's dealt with outside of their individual name and outside the probate court. So here's a spouse who's suddenly sort of disinherited by these other means, or even a revocable trust, right? Lots of people use a living trust, a loving trust, that kind of a thing to manage their affairs. And you have to say, well, those assets are titled in the name of the trust. They don't fall under this rule about disinheriting a spouse. So the basic rule is only things that are covered by the statute are involved. However, in law, it always depends, right? So there are a line of cases that say, well, what really is in effect here is whether or not a spouse is using these devices as an avoidance of probate, or if the device served some other purpose. So if it's just sort of an avoiding probate thing, like a TOD deed, transfer on death deed, then the court is going to pull that back into the estate and say it's really part of the probate estate, even though it's not technically. So we're going to look at it equitably and bring it back in the estate. Other things like a revocable living trust that serve just as a testamentary avoidance idea to avoid probate are also going to be brought back in. But other things that maybe are not, or if the trust is serving some other purpose, for instance, it's caring for you during your lifetime, and there really is a bona fide methodology of care for the trust maker, then the cases are going to go the other way. And things like annuities and IRAs that flow by a beneficiary designation, maybe even life insurance, are also not going to be included because they serve a purpose other than avoiding probate, other than a testamentary transfer. So the rule is, it depends. My favorite, right? All lawyers, it depends. That's our favorite rule. You got to look at it and say what really is the part of the statute that is applying. Do we use the black letter of the law, or do we look at it in a little bit more holistic manner? And so you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. What's the final answer? Really it depends. So take a look at that. Be careful with your estate planning. We do tons of it here for our investor clients and otherwise, and we'd be happy to help you work through some of that decision making process and decide what to do to take care of yourself, to take care of your spouse, to take care of your kids, or other charities that you might be wanting to provide for. Very complicated type of decision making of who's going to help you. So give us a call. We'd be happy to help and make sure it goes the right way and that your wishes are accomplished and everyone is protected. Thank you so much.